If you're in the ninth grade and you've been paying attention to your weekly outline, you must have realized that we're talking a lot about essays. And the essays that you need to learn how to write are persuasive essays. And what are persuasive essays? Well, the word says it. A persuasive essay is a piece of writing in which you are going to try to convince somebody of your point of view, to tell them to change their ideas or to take action. That's a persuasive essay, one of my favorite types of essays. But what we're going to be focusing on in this particular class is how to write thesis statements. Why? Because a strong thesis statement can make or break an essay. And the purpose of the thesis statement is to give the reader an idea of what you are going to be talking about in your essay. Thesis, thesis statement, thesis statement. Try to get the pronunciation correct. Thesis statement. So what exactly is a thesis statement? It's a strong sentence, a strong grammatically correct sentence that gives the reader a clear picture of what the essay is about. And basically it gives the reader an idea of where you're taking the essay, and it gives them the choice. Do I want to read this or not? So thesis statement is what we're going to be focusing on. Now remember, a thesis statement is one sentence, and it doesn't have to be a long run-on sentence. One short sentence with a punch that gets directly to the point is perfect. So let's think about two things. We're going to use two examples, two things that we could write persuasive essays about. The first one that I can come up with is whiteboard markers are toxic. Whiteboard markers are toxic. And not only are they toxic because of the smell, but also because they become garbage in the environment. So my persuasive essay is to try to convince you that whiteboard markers are toxic and they should no longer be used. A second example of a persuasive essay would be rice is fattening. Rice is fattening. Rice is an important part of most people's diet, but it's actually fattening. I want to persuade you of this idea. Now, sadly, society has taught us that when you want to persuade somebody of an idea, you become offensive, you become critical, you become insultive. No, that's not what you do in a persuasive essay. In a persuasive essay, you use your intelligence to persuade somebody to change their point of view without insults, without being critical, without being sarcastic. None of those are as powerful of getting directly to the point with good facts. Okay? So we're just going to be working on a thesis statement, one sentence, one powerful sentence that summarizes the idea. And as I probably said before, the thesis statement is usually in the first paragraph. It's usually at the end of the first paragraph, so the reader can know that's an introduction of what's coming next. So let's start with the first one. Whiteboard markers are toxic. What would be a great thesis statement for this? So first I need to think, because writing begins up here. It's not just grab the pen or get on the computer and just type crazy. No, it begins here. And in fact, one of the reasons why so many people make so many mistakes when they're writing, and I'm not talking about grammatical errors, but mistakes of just saying the wrong thing, is because they begin their writing here or here or here and did not stop to begin here. Okay, so this is important. Writing begins up here. So I'm going to think about whiteboard markers being toxic and how they're used worldwide in most schools and universities. So I'm going to focus on that to come up with my thesis statement. And my thesis statement can say something like this. Even though, no, I like the word although, sorry, I really like although. Although whiteboard markers Whiteboard is one word or two, it depends. Whiteboard markers have almost entirely replaced chalk. Remember well, you wouldn't, but your parents would remember the days when we used chalk in school. I actually love chalk. I enjoy chalk. Although whiteboard markers have almost entirely replaced chalk, let's put a comma there, their toxic components make us wonder if they are such a good idea. Although whiteboard markers have almost entirely replaced chalk, their toxic components make us wonder if they are such a good idea. That's a good thesis statement, because whoever reads this knows that in the following paragraphs or the upcoming paragraphs, I am going to try to convince them that using whiteboard markers is not such a good idea. Okay? So that's one example of a thesis statement. One sentence, strong, grammatically correct, and it gives me a summary of what the essay is about. And so let's go to the second one. Rice is fattening. Ooh, people love rice. Rice is delicious. So this is going to be a tough one. And I like to pick the tougher subjects because I could try to convince you that washing your hands is important, but I think the world is at a place in which we realize that. So let's go for the stronger, more controversial topics. So rice is fattening. So I could start by thinking, most people love to have some rice on their plate once or twice a day. Rice is relatively cheap. It's relatively easy to prepare. It can be prepared in so many different ways, but studies are showing that it's probably not that good for health. So what would my thesis statement look like? Rice is a popular staple on most, let's make it specific, Panamanian, you write Panamanian. A lot of people make a mistake and write an E there because it says Panamanian, but no, it's Panamanian. And it's always capitalized because in English, nationalities are also capitalized. Rice is a popular staple on most Panamanian plates. But studies show it might be the cause, it might be one cause of obesity. Rice is a popular staple on most Panamanian plates, but studies show it might be one cause of obesity. And of course, if I mention studies, in my essay, I'm gonna have to dig up those studies and mention them. I can't just say studies show and then not prove it. Okay, so this is a persuasive essay. This is the way you write thesis statements for persuasive essays. Remember, writing begins up here. See you next time.